Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Government House. My name is Hugh Borroman. I have the honour to be the official secretary to Her Excellency the Governor. I will be the Master of Ceremonies today. As we start, could I please ask that you make sure your mobile phones are turned to silent? We ask that you don't take photographs during the ceremony. After the ceremony, both in this room and anywhere else in the House, you're more than welcome to take photographs. And there is, of course, an official photograph, and we will arrange photographs of you and the recipients after the ceremony. It is also being live streamed and will be on the Government House website immediately from the conclusion of the ceremony. Before we continue, can I ask you to join me in thanking able seaman Nick Southcott from the Royal Australian Navy for his contribution today. This is the second of 6 ceremonies to present Australian Honours and Australian Bravery declarations, most of which were announced on Australia Day. I will now announce the official party. They are the Honourable Zoe Bettison, MP, representing the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable David Spears, MP, Leader of the Opposition, Commander Alex Ward, representing the Commanding Officer, HMAS Encounter, Colonel Nicholas Wilson, representing the Army Area Representative, South Australia, Air Commodore Margot Foster, representing the Senior Australian Defence Force Officer, Edinburgh Precinct, and Assistant Commissioner Philip Newitt, APM, representing the Commissioner of Police. If you are able, please be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency the Governor and Mr Bunton, and remain standing for the playing of the Vice-Regal salute. Your Excellency.
Oh, I'm sorry, please stand. I think, what's going on here? The Vice-Regal salute, please listen. Please be seated. Gana bogana alia, gana miana alia, yaichi miana alia, kumatana yartananku. I acknowledge that the land we're meeting on this morning is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and I pay my respects to the elders. As I was waiting to come in this morning, I calculated that this was my 32nd investiture ceremony, and you'd think I would know by now, which I do, that we remain standing for the Vice-Regal salute. But perhaps that's a nice relaxed way of getting into this morning. Rod and I very much want you to feel welcome here at Government House. The ceilings are high, the chandeliers are large, there's a lot of gilt around as well, but whether you've come many times before or are here for the first time, we really want you to feel comfortable on what is a very special occasion. I want to start formally by congratulating those whom I'm about to invest with their awards, in almost all cases announced on Australia Day this year. In one case, I think, held over from the King's Birthday Honours List, the first King's Birthday and Honours List in 70 years, but we're getting used to it now. For those of you who are here in the front section, you are really the people who the recipients love most, who've been most supportive of them throughout the work that they've done. And for you, I really hope this will be a day to enjoy. It's quite special though. I mean, the awards in the Order of Australia are made for outstanding service or exceptional achievement. And you'll know the outstanding service or exceptional achievement for the person you're here to support. But in the course of the morning, you'll come to understand what everybody else has done too. And that adds up to something really quite extraordinary. We recognise extraordinary things in our society in a number of ways. This morning we're doing it though, not just with the recipients and their guests, but also in front of Minister Bettison representing the Premier, David Spears as Leader of the Opposition, the Service and SAPOL chiefs, and there are a couple of people in the front row who I also want to mention because you won't necessarily know them and they're really important in the whole process. Rick Morris, who's South Australia's representative both on the Council for the Order of Australia and also the Australian Bravery Decorations Council. So Rick's the person who makes it all happen for South Australia, and Donald Clark OAM next to him, who is here representing the chair of the Order of Australia Association of South Australia. It's extraordinary too because recipients of these awards typically don't seek recognition. And in fact, it's almost always the case, it certainly was again yesterday, that someone confides in me afterwards that when the email or the letter arrived, they thought it was a hoax or a phishing thing, a joke of some kind. They deleted it or put it in the bin. Some of them consulted their spouses who also agreed it couldn't be true, and then it was deleted. And I think that speaks a bit to the fact that, as I say, you don't seek recognition. But there's a really important point here, and that is unless someone recognises in those we're making awards for today or other people that they are worthy of an award in the Order of Australia, it doesn't happen. These awards are all nominated by Australians, and I know that there are many other worthy potential recipients, including here in South Australia. So you'll leave here this morning with a much better idea of what this is all about, and I encourage you all, please, to think about who you or others you know might nominate so that they too can receive this recognition. And my final request is of the recipients, please wear your insignia. I wear my small insignia pin pretty much every day of the year. On formal occasions such as this, I wear my neck decoration, shortened perfectly acceptably to neck deck, and not many people know that. In fact, I haven't said it before, but it is true. And there are, of course, occasions also, formal occasions when you're wearing evening wear, when it is appropriate to wear your miniatures. So please, I encourage you to do that. I'm sure we'll have something to do with each other in future. I hope next time I see you, you'll be wearing it. So, Official Secretary, let's get underway.
Your Excellency, the following recipient has been appointed an officer in the General Division of the Order of Australia. Clinical Associate Professor Robert Arley is recognised for distinguished service to medical and health research, particularly drug and alcohol dependence, and to education and training. Through his groundbreaking research, Professor Arley has shed light on the physiological, psychological and social factors that contribute to drug and alcohol dependence. For 3 decades, he has served as Clinical Director of Drug and Alcohol Services South Australia, where, under his leadership, innovative treatment approaches were developed. A key element of Professor Arley's work has been introducing needle exchange programs into South Australia. Internationally, he has also introduced drug addiction counselling and methadone treatment in Vietnam. As a member of the Australian National Advisory Council on Alcohol and Drugs, Professor Arley continues to shape national policies and initiatives aimed at addressing substance abuse and addiction. Professor Arley holds several university appointments, including visiting research fellow at the Australian National Drug and Alcohol Research Centre, as well as at Flinders and Adelaide universities. His expertise and mentorship have inspired countless students and researchers to pursue excellence in evidence-based approaches to support people experiencing addiction. Clinical Associate Professor Robert Arley. Your Excellency, the following recipients have been appointed members in the General Division of the Order of Australia. Associate Professor Barbara Baird is recognised for significant service to community health through pro-choice advocacy and to tertiary education. Professor Baird's journey towards becoming a leading figure in the fight for abortion rights began with a deep understanding of history and lived experience. Her PhD dissertation, which explored South Australian women's experiences of illegal abortion before 1970, provided her with invaluable insights into the harsh realities faced by women. Professor Baird's seminal work, Abortion Care as Healthcare, served as a powerful call to action, challenging the stigma surrounding abortion and advocating for its recognition as an essential component of health care. As a co-convener of the South Australian Abortion Action Coalition, Professor Baird was instrumental in changing South Australia's abortion laws. At the University of Tasmania, Professor Baird worked to develop a gender studies curriculum which reflected diverse perspectives and addressed broader social issues, including gender inequality and LGBTIQ+ rights. Professor Baird's work with the Lesbian and Gay Community Action Group resulted in establishing relationships between South Australian police and the lesbian and gay community. Associate Professor Barbara Baird. Mr. John Russell Baker is recognised for significant service to surf lifesaving, to veterans and to the community. Mr. Baker has had a strong impact on surf lifesaving from grassroots levels through to the development of national strategy and policy. Since joining the Brighton Surf Lifesaving Club in 1977, he has dedicated more than 40 years to the organisation in a range of roles, including as a patrolling member, a competitor and an office bearer. Before his election as President of Surf Lifesaving Australia, Mr. Baker held the role of Surf Lifesaving South Australia President. He was also the Surf Lifesaving South Australia Chief Executive for 28 years before his retirement in 2014. In 1994, Mr. Baker joined the Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service and has completed more than 1,000 operational hours, as well as performing countless rescues, searches and first aid cases. Mr. Baker is also involved with Australia's online war memorial, the Virtual War Memorial Australia, and is currently the Deputy National Chairman. Mr. John Russell Baker. Emeritus Professor Lee Alexander Berg is recognised for significant service to science, particularly through the development of DNA technologies. Professor Berg's pioneering work advancing our understanding of genetics has paved the way for multiple discoveries that continue to shape the landscape of science and forensic analysis. In a career spanning more than 40 years, he drove research into the DNA nucleus and developed sophisticated DNA detection techniques. His work took place in the fields of molecular biology and biochemistry and from 1965, his research focused on DNA and chromatin, genetics, and genome structure. In the late 1980s, Professor Berg developed FTA paper, a specialised filter paper used in DNA testing for sample collection, preservation, and storage, which became a worldwide industry standard for storing DNA samples. He was instrumental in establishing the Flinders University Forensic DNA Laboratory, which facilitates valuable DNA research to be undertaken by Flinders and Forensic Sciences SA. He also discovered how to identify traces of human DNA present on illicit drugs, which has significantly enhanced the capability of forensic science to support law enforcement in the investigation of drug-related crime. Emeritus Professor Lee Alexander Berg. Your Excellency, the following recipients have been awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division. Mrs. Carsa Joyce Carter is recognised for service to conservation and the environment. One of South Australia's best-known bushland champions, Mrs. Carter has applied her love of nature and considerable skill to many conservation projects. As a former science and biology teacher, her dedication to environmental protection was born from witnessing the devastation of a 1989 Adelaide Hills bushfire that burnt through the Engelbrook Reserve and much of her then recently acquired property. Mrs. Carter was one of South Australia's first Bush for Life regional coordinators, a role that supports teams of volunteers to look after some of our most precious remaining patches of habitat. She has also contributed to myriad other groups, including the National Trust, the Threatened Plant Action Group, and Trees for Life with similar enthusiasm. Known for her encouragement, practical know-how and approach, kindness, sense of fun and passion, she has fostered a wonderful and wild legacy for future South Australians. Mrs. Carsa Joyce Carter. Mr. John Clifford Chapman is recognised for service to public administration in South Australia. Known for his integrity and his frank and fair advice, Mr. Chapman has been a strong advocate for small business in South Australia. As Small Business Commissioner for 7 years, his office assisted businesses to navigate the impact of the pandemic, providing a voice at a time when many felt powerless. As Commissioner, he oversaw the resolution of disputes about rental payments, as well as spearheaded several reforms, including changes to the Retail and Commercial Leases Act and the Building and Construction Industry Security of Payment Act. Mr. Chapman is also recognised for his contribution as Chief Executive Officer of the Motor Trade Association for 9 years. In earlier years, as a senior journalist, he cut his teeth covering the State Bank Royal Commission and went on to become the Chief of Staff to the then Treasurer and Premier. He is currently the Construction Industry Training Board presiding member, tackling the challenges of upskilling workers and improving completion rates for apprentices. Mr. John Clifford Chapman. Mr. Peter George Christopher is recognised for service to community history. For almost 60 years, Mr. Christopher has explored ocean depths as a scuba diver, whilst also advocating for the preservation of our maritime heritage. His expertise was called on as a member of the state government's inquiry into scuba diving deaths in sinkholes and caves in the southeast. The inquiry led to the voluntary regulation of training and certification in scuba diving, a landmark achievement that has undoubtedly saved many lives. Mr. Christopher was also instrumental in the rescue and restoration of the City of Adelaide clipper ship, ensuring that it found its way back to Adelaide, where it stands as a symbol of our seafaring past. He convened the first meeting of volunteers to save the ship in 2000 and has since worked tirelessly, fundraising and collaborating in the planned Seaport Village project at Dock 2, Port Adelaide. Through the publication of 7 books on shipwrecks and co-authoring a further 2, Mr. Christopher has brought to life vessels lost to time. Mr. Peter George Christopher. Mr. David Bernett Mcneel is recognised for service to business and professional associations. Mr. Mcneel's entrepreneurial career has included local and national leadership roles, and his work in the manufacturing and electricity distribution network has contributed to the economic and social fabric of South Australia. He is a long-time member of the SA Industry Leaders Fund, which he co-founded. Through a living bequest, he also established within the fund an award program for exceptional scholars with a flair for innovation. Mr. Mcneel has been committed to mentoring and supporting future leaders and engineers through apprenticeships, scholarships and training. He is a chair of manufacturer Tyree Group and the International Copper Council Australia, a former chairman of Electronet, and was for many years a director of the Australian Industry Group. He still travels extensively for his manufacturing interests. Colleagues have praised Mr. Mcneel's strategic mind and mentorship and described him as the wind beneath the wings of many great Australian leaders. Mr. David Bernett Mcneel. The Reverend Barbara Ann Paul Hunt is recognised for service to the Anglican Church of Australia. Responding to a calling in her 40s, Reverend Barbara took up religious studies and became a deacon in 1997 and a priest 2 years later. She has been priest in charge of St Philip's Anglican Church in Somerton Park for 22 years and leads a collaborative ministry with the church's Warrendale parish, officiating at baptisms, weddings, funerals, hospital visits, church services at aged care centres, Easter and Christmas celebrations, and leading youth groups. She is also chaplain to the Somerton Surf Lifesaving Club and the SA Aquatic Centre, and thrives on making connections with young people and their families. She has coordinated efforts to provide books and equipment to children in schools in Fiji and raised money for a playground there. She is also a volunteer for the annual Bags of Love food drive with Rotary. Reverend Barb, as she is known to her congregation, says the church is not a job but a way of life, and that listening to people is life-giving. She feels fortunate to have been able to baptise her grandchildren, and this year will officiate at a grandson's wedding. The Reverend Barbara Ann Paul Hunt. Mr. Stuart Paxton is recognised for service to the community through a range of roles. Founder of the Great Tracks clean-up crew, Mr. Paxton and fellow volunteers trekked through the outback to remove more than 750 tonnes of dumped rubbish. A country police officer for 30 years, Mr. Paxton saw firsthand the tyres, paper litter, bottles and cans, and even washing machines and televisions left in areas such as the Strzelecki track. He recruited a group to tackle a different area each year. Over 14 years, they worked for tens of thousands of hours to remove and recycle material from around the state. Mr. Paxton also founded the Edithburgh Squadron of the SA Sea Rescue. He coordinates the Riverton Cemetery clean-up through the Gilbert Valley Lions Club and is a member of several other Lions clubs. Though retired from SA Police, he continues to serve the community through the RSL, Neighbourhood Watch, Country Fire Service, State Emergency Service and Meals on Wheels. Mr. Stuart Paxton. Ms. Diana Rank is recognised for service to the community through a range of organisations. A fundraiser, trustee and benefactor, Ms. Rank is driven by a desire to support education and opportunities, especially for young people. The daughter of migrant parents, she was the first in her family to attend university and contributes to scholarships and other education programs. Her involvement in the arts and community organisations began when she worked at Flinders University and established partnerships with the State Theatre Company and the South Adelaide Football Club. She is a member of the Theatre Company's board and personally supports a number of its programs. She is also Deputy Chair of the company's foundation. She is a patron and fundraiser for other arts and community groups, including the Brighton Surf Lifesaving Club. Additionally, she is a leadership mentor for the SA Health and Medical Research Institute, a volunteer race announcer for Dry Lakes Races Australia at Lake Gardner, and has a monthly community radio segment. Ms. Rank is a keen art collector and supporter of emerging artists and contributed funding for the recent visit to Adelaide of Little Amal Puppet, a global symbol of human rights as part of the Adelaide Festival. Ms. Diana Rank. Your Excellency, the following recipients have been awarded the Group Bravery Citation in the Australian Bravery Decorations. Mr. Edward Michael Blight, Mr. Henry John Weir, and Mr. Henry Murray Sever are recognised with the award of Group Bravery Citation for their actions rescuing multiple people from a rip at Petrel Cove Beach in Encounter Bay on 27th of January 2023. Mr. Weir and Mr. Sever, along with Mr. Blight from Sydney, risked their own safety to save 2 men and a child from a dangerous rip at Petrel Cove. The rescuers were confronted with treacherous conditions on the eastern side of the beach, battling a large swell, strong currents and jagged rocks. A young boy had entered the water from the beach and, unfamiliar with the dangerous conditions, became caught in a strong rip which dragged him out and around the rocky eastern side of the cove. 2 of his family members rushed into the water to rescue the boy, but were soon caught in the rip as well. Mr. Weir, a confident surfer, rushed out to help them. The young boy had climbed onto the back of one of the family members, and the extra weight was holding the man under. All 3 family members were having difficulty staying above water. Mr. Weir grabbed the boy to get him to safety, and with the assistance of Mr. Blight, who had swum out on a boogie board to assist, managed to get the boy to a nearby rocky outcrop that was being lashed by waves. Mr. Sever, already in the water with fins and a boogie board, saw one of the other men being swept around the point and paddled towards him. On the way, however, he found another man struggling in the water and pulled him towards Mr. Weir and Mr. Blight. He gave his board to one of the men to hold on to while holding the other man afloat. The water pushed them against the rocks for several minutes until Mr. Sever got the man up onto the rocks and out of the water. The rescued man took a minute to recover and helped the other man on the board get out of the water. Mr. Sever then trod water while holding on to the other man for a few minutes until paddling towards two surfers who assisted him to bring the last man to shore. Mr. Sever then observed the other two rescuers were still on the rocky outcrop with the child, so he used his board to paddle to them. They placed the child onto the board and swam to a less steep section of the rocks and took the boy from the water, where they were greeted by a police officer who was alerted to the unfolding emergency by family members of the rescuers. 3 of the rescued people were transported to the Victor Harbour Hospital by emergency services, and all thankfully survived. Mr. Edward Michael Blight, Mr. Henry John Weir, and Mr. Henry Murray Sever. Your Excellency, that concludes the presentations for this morning.
Thank you, Official Secretary, and I'm sure you will agree, everyone. We all use our imaginations when we hear these citations, and I think our imaginations were working particularly in overdrive as we heard about the circumstances under which the recipients of the Bravery Awards this morning had sprung into action. But for everyone here this morning, as we listen to what they've done, I could see a number of people in Rose faces light up and smile. I think there's a connection between you and the person that I was investing, but I would just ask all of you, let's together congratulate a wonderful group of Australians on their achievements and their service.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you are able, can you please rise for the departure of Her Excellency and Mr. Bunton and the official party? Can I ask the recipients, please, to remain in the room for the official photograph and for the other guests to join Her Excellency and Mr. Bunton in the drawing rooms for morning tea. And as I say, there will be then the opportunity for photographs out there and again in here. Thank you very much.